Today I'm doing something a little bit different, but I think it's going to be great and I think it's going to be fun because I'm going to be making some Wagyu boneless beef rib burnt ends. That's right, we're working with some Wagyu beef today, and what we're using are some boneless plate ribs. You can see here, it's basically the rib meat with the bones removed. Now, a smaller part of this would be the short ribs. These are the full plate right here. You can see both sides, a lot of good fat here. Now, this cut of beef was sent to me by Wagyu. Wagyu is a family-run ranch in Texas. All their beef is hormone-free, pasture-raised. They've sent me many cuts of beef to use in videos. It's always turned out great. If you want to check them out, I'll leave a link down below. And if you decide to buy something, use the coupon code CWR because you'll get 20% off your order, and it's just terrific meat. So what I need to do is I'm going to break this down into cubes. Now, they're not going to be tiny cubes. I want them to be maybe a couple inches across, because they are going to shrink up a bit as they smoke out on the pit barrel cooker. So I'm just going to go probably right about there and just work our way across. I think we got it just about right. Almost even measurements all the way across. Pretty close. Now I'm going to take each one of these pieces and I'm going to cut them into 3 sections. So what we're almost creating here are the short rib pieces of meat. If you see that, that's about the size of meat you would get if you have a beef short rib. Keep breaking this down here. You can see why some people will take the beef plate ribs just like this and make what's called beef bacon. You can see that sort of similar structure in there. All right, I'm going to clean my cutting board up and we're going to move on to getting the rub on these. All right, let's get our rub ready. 5 ingredients. We're starting with a tablespoon of cracked black pepper, a tablespoon of kosher salt, a tablespoon of granulated garlic, 2 tablespoons of a smoked paprika, and 2 teaspoons of cane sugar. This is just going to help bring a little bit of sweetness and offset sort of that bite of the paprika. If you don't have cane sugar, you could use brown sugar, but I find cane sugar works really well in rubs like this. Get our lid on here, mix it up. Just like that, let's get it on our Wagyu beef ribs. So we're gonna go ahead and start getting our rub on here, tossing everybody around in this bowl. Because these are gonna be burnt end beef rib pieces, we are gonna be putting a glaze on them later. You could do this on a tray if you wanted and just like sprinkle each side, but I just decided to go easy today. Use a bowl, a little bit less mess. Of course, until I spill the rub on the outside of the bowl, which I usually do. Now, if you wanted to, you could rub these up several hours in advance. I'm only going to let these rest for about 15 minutes before we get them out on the PBC. I've done things like this actually as long as overnight before. Works fine. Just don't have that much time today. Sometimes you got to work with the time you got. All right, I'm happy with these. I'm going to let them rest for about 15 minutes and then we're going to get them out to the pit barrel cooker. Now, I'm not worrying about what's fat side up or fat side down. And I have pecan wood for smoke in there today. Let's get our hanging rods back in. They're part of the venting system. Get our lid on and get smoking. So we're going to be letting these boneless Wagyu beef rib pieces today go for about 2 hours before I check them. At that time, I'm going to see how tender they are and see if it's time to get them in that glaze in a foil pan and spend probably another hour on their further tenderizing. So I'll see you back here in a couple hours. All right, we've been going 2 hours. Let's check these, and I'm pretty sure we're gonna be transferring them to a foil pan and get that great glaze on them. All right, let's see how we're doing here. We are starting to get tender, but it still needs a little bit more. So it is the perfect time to get these into a foil pan. So for our glaze here, we're gonna use about half a cup of honey. Just gonna kind of pour it in here. This is just by eyeball. Might even been more than half a cup. I'm also gonna use about half a cup of a sweet chili sauce that I got from Trader Joe's. I'm gonna add about maybe a half a cup of water. We're just gonna get in here, make sure everybody gets coated. Get that glaze over everybody. All right, we're gonna get some foil on here and get it back on the PVC. All right, we're gonna let these go for an hour and then they'll be done. Well, here they are, our boneless Wagyu beef rib burnt ends. Now, those of you out there that make things like this on the barbecue, on the smoker, get ready because there are gonna be people saying, that's burnt. Not burnt, it's called bark. That's what you wanna develop, that sort of crusty exterior. When you're cooking out on the smoker, this is what you're shooting for. Now, we took it a little further with that glaze to turn these into burnt ends. Now, they're a little bigger than traditional burnt ends, but the thing that's great about using beef ribs, and especially boneless beef ribs, is beef ribs are kind of like brisket on a stick when you cook them right. With that bone still attached, pick it up, you eat it, it just tastes like brisket. You take it off, it behaves very similar to brisket. Doesn't take quite as long to cook. This took approximately 3 hours total time. 2 hours just in the rub there, and then an hour in the foil pan. But when you're cut into smaller chunks like this, you get that heat, that cooking action from all sides. It does cook quicker. But looking at this here, let's cut into one of these and see what we have. So I just have this one nice piece right here. I got my big slicer knife. I figured overkill for this. And let's see. Oh, all that fat in this Wagyu. Oh yeah. And you can see we got a nice little smoke ring there. You're not gonna get tons of penetration on this sort of cut with that amount of time, but good. Oh man, that juice in there, look at that. When you do have Wagyu, and it is definitely a treat, I was fortunate that Wagyu sent this to me. I've purchased Wagyu before and it is expensive, but it is a treat, as I said. If you want a special meal, Wagyu is a really nice way to go on it. But you could definitely make these with a prime cut, even a choice cut if you can get that for those beef ribs, and just take the bone off yourself, or cook them with the bone on, then remove the meat, finish them up like burn ends. But right now, this bad boy is calling out to me, so it's time to taste. So I went ahead and cut a few pieces here, and it is just time to dig in. Every time I have a Wagyu cut, whether it's tri-tip or picanha or beef ribs or brisket, when you get that first bite, if you've cooked it right, got it right to that right level of tenderness, it just melts in your mouth. Oh, great taste from the rub underneath that glaze, plus the pecan wood. That smoke works really well with beef. You do get a little hint of that in here. It's not overpowering because we only had about 2 hours with that smoke. But that glaze on the outside, turning this into burned ends, that's killer. Now here's a little bit of that barky exterior. Let's see. That is where all the flavor from that rub is concentrated in that development of the bark. It is just fantastic. So if you're looking for a treat and you want to make burnt ends but make them a little different than most other people would make them, give some boneless beef ribs a try. If you can't get those, use regular beef ribs, take the meat off after it's cooked for a couple hours, cube it up, give it a nice glaze, and you're gonna have an amazing dish.